Hello and welcome back to the third part of this series, and in this tutorial we're finally going to be kicking off on our Wized setup, starting with the shop page. So using our cheat sheet from our Cloneable, we're going to have GPT build out the request for us so we can retrieve all the items from our shop collection list and make sure that we have everything set up the way we intend it to. So let's get right into it. We're going to start off with our page settings for the shop, because before I jump over to Wized, I just quickly want to review all the custom code that we have and I need to inform you about. Okay, so first things first, we have, also I'm assuming that based on the last tutorial, you already have your Code Sandbox account prepped up. So let me just quickly head over to Code Sandbox. So you should have all your JavaScript files here in your Sandbox account. Make sure that the Sandbox account itself is linked to your Cloneable, and you should have all your JavaScript file names exactly the way I have it on the doc. So this is for, to simplify things for you and make it easier for you to understand as to what's happening. You can change this, you're free to change this, but as long as you know what you're doing. Okay. So let's head back to WEBFLOW and take a look at our page loader transition. So it's pretty obvious. We have the page loader transition here, and this is the page transition shop JavaScript file, which is this one right here. I'm not going to be addressing any of the animations here, but I will be linking the tutorials for those. I will be linking the relevant tutorials on the description. So if you're interested, you can check them out. But what I should let you know is that you'll notice that the entire animation is tied in with this Wized request called fetch initial products. So what that means is I'm on the shop page. So if I refresh the shop page, you'll notice that we have the page loader here and it folds away. So it only folds away when our shop products are retrieved successfully. Only then it loads up. So that's essentially what is happening in this custom code here. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Then we have our GSAP animation. So these two script tags are loading up the GSAP library. And this one here, GSAP shop, is basically just carrying out just very subtle, simple animation. So let's just go back to the demo here real quick and refresh the page. So you'll notice that as soon as the page loader goes away, we have these texts here, subtly fading in. We also have the video fading in, and you'll notice that the items over here fades in. That's it. That's the animation that we have. But we timed it to make sure that that animation is executed only when the page loader is 50% away. So let's just quickly check that out. So we have GSAP shop. So that's the code right here. Again, I will also link the relevant tutorials for this here in the description. So perfect. That brings us to the end of the custom code. I'm going to go ahead and close that, and we are going to jump over to our Wized. Perfect. So first things first, we need to create our app first. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to call this Shopify GraphQL. And we're going to select REST for this. And for the base URL, it has to be our Shopify store URL. So the best way to retrieve that would be to go over to Shopify and then head over to settings. So basically, this is the one that we need. Let's jump over to Wized here. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Okay, now that we have added Shopify GraphQL to my apps, we're going to go ahead and create our very first request. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to ChatGPT. So as you can see, I've already went ahead and prompted GPT to help me out with the request. So I'm going to quickly walk you through with what's happening. So I've fed GPT the entire cheat sheet, and GPT is entirely caught up with Wized and how it works. And once, there we go. Okay. Then I prompted GPT that now based on this, could you please create a Shopify API request using admin API on Wized that queries the following. Retrieve the first 12 products from my collection list that has the handle of shop. And then we want the product ID, of course, for our identifier. We need the product name, the product image, product price, and has next page and has previous page. So because we have pagination on our collection list, we have pagination for that page. So we need to use these two here to make sure that, they're included inside the body, so that we get, it returns a Boolean value, both of these elements here. So has next page returns a Boolean value of true or false to let the system know that, hey, we indeed do have items available on the next page. The same goes for has previous page as well. So if you're on page number 2 in terms of pagination, then it also lets you know that, hey, we do have items on the previous page. And scrolling down, then of course GPT completely crafted out the entire app for us. The entire request for us and how it should be constructed. But the problem is GPT has produced the REST API request, which is not the correct one. So I went ahead and clarified this by saying, but how would I construct this request if I need to retrieve it via GraphQL? Now, before I continue any further, for those of you who can't code just like myself, and you're sat there and wondering, how am I supposed to know that I need to prompt exactly that to GPT? Please understand that I have worked through each and every request with GPT through multiple iterations. So over time, I've learned what exactly do I need to, what correct terminology to use to appropriately prompt to get the request that I'm looking for. So yeah, GPT always tells you and advises you how to approach a certain problem. The key is to communicate with GPT properly in what exactly it is that you're trying to achieve, and you will, of course, it will craft the request that you're after in no time. All right, so scrolling down, it finally gives me the GraphQL, the proper request that we're after. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this real quick. So it mentions that I need to create the app in my apps, which is a step that we've already covered. But you'll notice that in the base URL, it mentions that I need to put this entire URL, which is actually not correct. So the one that we need is basically this over here. So we need just this portion of it for our URL endpoint. So what I mean by that is I'm going to quickly hop over to Wized here, and then we're going to create our data out request. The reason why we're creating a data out request instead of data in is because Shopify GraphQL makes post requests in order to retrieve products. So I think it kind of mentions that here. Oh, right here. In the data out section, create a post request, and then we will call it retrieve product. Well, we're not going to call it retrieve products. We're going to call it something else. And then it gives us the entire setup. So let me just set this up because I know how to get this done. So I'm going to call this retrieve products. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to my code sandbox and go to GSAP. No, page transition shop. So there we go. That's the request name that I was using for the real store that I have. So I'm going to copy that and bring this over here. So also this goes without saying, this is case sensitive. So you want to make sure that you properly name this so that this works in conjunction with the code, with your custom JavaScript code that you have. All right. So we're also going to create a folder and call this /shop so that we know that this request belongs to the shop page. Close that and create shop. Then we're going to select Shopify GraphQL for the app, and for the URL endpoint, we're going to select, we need to copy that URL from GPT. So starting from the /, you want to copy this URL. Okay, now another thing that I wanted to address here is that the version here is 2022 to 01. So in order to grab the recent and the correct version, what you can do is head over to Shopify and okay, so let me just close this and redo this again. Click on settings and then head over to app and sales channel. You want to head over to develop apps and then Wized Shopify here, and then click on admin API integration. If you scroll down, you'll notice that we have the version right here. You'll also notice that we have the latest version, but I'm currently going to go ahead and use this one right here because the latest version tends to break sometimes. So just as a safe measure, use the version before that. So we're going to use 2023-07. So let's go ahead and do that. 07. There we go. That's done. And we're going to set the method to post. And because Shopify GraphQL works on server side, so we need to make sure to check this. Okay, so we don't have anything for our URL parameters, but we do have something for our headers. So we're going to go ahead and copy that. Okay, so where is the headers? Okay, so we have content type as our key. And then we have application GraphQL as our value. And then we're going to go ahead and create another key because we have to put in our Shopify access token. In order to get your access token, you can get it from here. So you head over to API credentials and you only get access to this one time. So the only time that you get access to this is when you're creating the app for the very first time. After that, once it's hidden away, it's hidden away. You cannot get access to this anymore. So if that does happen to you, make sure to uninstall and delete the app and recreate the Wized Shopify app again. So I covered this on the last tutorial. So yeah, you just need to repeat that and you're good to go. I already have my access key off screen, so I'm going to copy that and head over to Wized again and paste that in. Perfect. Now we're going to work on the body. So for the body, use a raw body input to insert your GraphQL query. Here's an example query. Okay, so we need to put in query over here. And as the value, we need to copy this. Copy the code. Paste it in. And done. But let me just quickly actually just walk you through this. So as you can see, we're targeting the collection by shop. So in case if you're wondering, how do we know that the handle is shop exactly? So if you go over to Shopify, and if we go to products here and collections, and then we have our, okay, let me just refresh this page. It's got this weird bug where you can't just click on it. Okay, you click on this here and you scroll all the way down to search engine listing and right here. So you have your URL handle. So this is the handle. Based on this handle, we are going to retrieve the first 12 items of that collection list. So if you look at the demo shop, that's what we have. We have all 12 items initially that we pull in initially. All right. And then we have the page info that tells us if it has items on the next page and if it has items on the previous page, which obviously is going to be true for the first and false on the second, because obviously we're viewing the first page items. So this is going to be false. Then we have ID, which is the product ID, the product name, and the first image. And scrolling down, we have the price V2, which is the price and the amount of, yeah, so just the price of the product. And that's it. That's all we need. So we're going to click on done, and we're going to test this out. So as you can see that it didn't work. Now with ChatGPT, when you're working with Shopify GraphQL requests, you're going to have to go through multiple iterations and communicate with GPT as to what the error is. So that's exactly what I did with GPT here. After I did this, I mentioned to GPT that, hey, thank you, I got this error. Field price V2 doesn't exist on product variant. So I copied and pasted the error message. So if you want to know what error message to copy, it's the one that is this data path right here. Generally that says .error.message. So it generally tells you what the error is. So in my case, the error is a little different. But anyway, we're also going to address that in a bit. So ChatGPT rectifies that, and it says, I apologize for the confusion. It seems like the price V2 is not the correct term. So it reverts it to price instead of price V2. So what we're going to do is go ahead and copy that. And oh, also I spelled query wrong. My bad. All right, let's run this. Now this time, you'll notice that we're getting this error, unexpected string. So we're still getting errors. And the best way, and this is the solid way of resolving Shopify GraphQL request errors, is to run it via Postman. So let me just check GPT if, okay. All right, so on GPT, I've wrote that this works beautifully. Thank you so much. You're awesome. Also, could we please add cursor to make sure that the items returned? We also want to grab their cursor value. Now, the reason why I said it was working is because on Shopify here, on this request, GPT made the error of mentioning GraphQL on the content type. It's supposed to be JSON. The reason I know this is because I went through the same error when I was doing this for the first time. So if you change this to JSON, now you'll notice that it actually works. As you can see that now we're grabbing all the items from our collection. And you'll notice that we're grabbing all 12 items and everything. So that's how I know it works. But we're just going to pretend that I haven't told you any of this. And we're going to revert back to GraphQL, because I want to show you how we can rectify these sort of errors. And this is very, very common for you to go through as well. So yeah, that's why I was texting like, oh, hey, I prompted, we also need the cursor value. Now, which brings me to my next point. So we need cursor value because we need them for our pagination. That's all you need to know. So I also had to mention this to GPT that, hey, we need the cursor value to be added into the body. So GPT went ahead and added the cursor into our body. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. Now, for those of you wondering, like, this seems a bit complicated because we're not familiar with these terms and terminology, and we don't really know how to prompt this. But like I said, you just need to give GPT a rough idea of what exactly it is that you're trying to achieve. And it's going to go through multiple iterations with you on crafting the perfect body here, for your request to work. So I've gone through multiple iterations. So that's how I know how to prompt this appropriately. So anyway, now that I've applied this, I'm going to hit play here to see if this works. Nope, it doesn't work. Perfect. So like I mentioned, that's because it has GraphQL. Now we want ChatGPT to recognize that issue. So what we're going to do is I've made this request here. Perfect. Could you now create this request for it to work on Postman? And it does exactly that. So what we're going to do, for those of you who are not familiar with Postman, it's basically an app where you can test your API. That's all you need to know. And for our purpose, what we're going to do is we are going to create our API request here to understand what the issue is. And then that's how we're going to help GPT craft the perfect response, the perfect request for it to work on Wized. So we're going to go ahead, click on new and click on HTTP here. All right, so we need to put in we need to switch over to post. Okay, and then what we need to do is head over to Wized here. So method is post. We need to copy this entire URL. Okay, so we need to replace this with our Shopify URL. So what I'm going to do is jump over to Wized, go to My Apps, copy this URL, and replace this with our Shopify and admin API. So I'm going to replace that with the endpoint URL from our request here, which is this one right here. So I'm going to copy that. So we're recreating the whole thing on Postman. That's essentially what we're doing. Oh, I have 2 forward slashes here. Okay, now that is done. So let's see what's next on the list. Headers, add the following. So again, it's the same setup as we have on Wized, but I think the body changes a little bit, which it does. So make sure to select headers and content type, application, GraphQL. I believe it says GraphQL, application GraphQL, and then X Shopify access token. All right, and then we're going to copy my key here. Okay, so select the raw option and input the GraphQL query. Here is the revised query with the cursor. All right, perfect. Now, let's put this select body and select raw and then paste this in. And now we're going to hit send. And there you go. As you can see, that same exact request works on Postman, but it doesn't work on Wized. So as you can see, we have grabbed all the cursor value of every item, the ID, the title, and everything that we need. So basically what we need to do is make sure that we need to tell GPT about this issue that, hey, okay, so it works on Postman, but I get this error on Wized. So I have pasted in the error message and asked where I could be going wrong. And that's when GPT immediately recognized that issue and changed the value of the header to JSON. So that's exactly what we need to do here. So we need to go ahead and change this to JSON, and our request should work. And there you go. It works beautifully. Also, in the process, I have completely forgotten to add one more thing. Our list here, so if I show you, so we have everything that we need except for one thing, and we're missing that. So it's the handle, the product handle. So I'm going to go ahead and prompt GPT, hey, thank you so much for this. It works beautifully. Could you please add the product handle to the body? So we're going to wait for that. Now, in case you're wondering, why do we need the product handle? We need that for our parameters. So I'm going to get into more details about that in a bit. So we're going to replace this right here and run this request again. Okay, it works perfectly. So I'm looking for this handle right here. So we need to make sure that each and every product has this handle. The reason why we need this handle is so that we can set, so when you click on this card, when you click on this card here, it takes you to the product detail page. And in that product detail page, we're going to set a parameter that has the product handle. And then based on that product handle, Wized is going to run an additional request to query and make sure that we grab all the details for that specific product. So let me show you what that looks like in practice. So let's say if I click on eucalyptus here, it loads up And there you go. So if I show you the address here, the URL, we have our URL, and then we have our parameter here, product eucalyptus SPP. So we need to grab this handle. That's why we need this handle here. Okay, so let's jump over back to Wiz. Okay, so that was quite tedious, but hopefully I really hope that that helps you understand how to communicate with GPT to craft your Shopify GraphQL requests. Now, what we're going to do is select the trigger. We're going to set up our trigger based on attribute. And for the attribute, what we're going to do is head back into WEBFLOW. So basically, we want to target this based on this item here, product item. We just need to check its attribute, so shop product item. So we are going to trigger this request when it detects the shop product item. Let's reload this page and see if it works. Perfect, it works. Okay, now we're going to create our first after request. And this one is going to be, we're going to set a variable. So the first variable is going to be shop products. So what we want to do is that, so select shop products, and we are going to insert. So there's this bug on Wized where it doesn't show you the preview of the request. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset this. And what I'm going to do before I create that, I'm just going to copy this one here. So that's the one. Actually, wait, no, this is the one here. So we need to copy this specific request and, sorry, not request, this data path. And then we're going to set our variable. So let's select our variable and put in our curly braces here. And there we go. So basically we have this variable shop products, and inside this variable, we're going to store this entire request of information inside this variable. And then using this variable, we're going to render out our entire list. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to create another variable. So before I do this, it's going to be our it's going to be for our pagination. So I need to look for that data path here before I create the variable because it's going to disappear. I believe it should be somewhere here. I think on the top. Oh, there we go. Has next page. So we're going to copy that. Okay, and then we're going to set a variable. We're going to create a new variable, and we're going to call this next items available. Close, select that, put in our curly brackets here as well. So as you can see, it returns a Boolean of true, but it doesn't matter. Basically, what we want to do is make sure that the has next page value is stored inside this variable right here, which is the next items available. Based on that, we are going to hide and reveal the next button and hide and reveal the previous button. So that's what we're doing right now. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so now we need to set our has previous page as well for our previous button. So I'm going to copy this data path, and then I'm going to create our variable. So I'm going to call this prev items available. And select that from here. Perfect. There we go. Now, lastly, we have our other variable, and that is going to be, oh, actually, let me just reset that. So remember how I mentioned that each and every item has a cursor value. So Shopify works with a cursor-based pagination. For those of you who are not familiar with what that means is if I head over to the demo page here, so we wait for this to load up. Okay, now each and every item has a cursor value. And when I click on next, it loads up the next batch of items. So the way it works is when we click on next, basically we make this query that, hey, this is the last item on the first page. Now, I would like to grab the next 10 products or 12 products starting from this product here. After this product. So that's what we're doing here. The same logic applies for previous as well. So when you click on previous, what it does, it grabs the value, the cursor value of the first item on the second page or any other page, and then it tells Shopify that, hey, I want to grab the last 12 items after this item right here. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so let's jump over to Wized. And because we're fetching the initial product, we just need we need the value for the next page, not the previous page. So we're going to be handling the previous page on a separate on the next tutorial, not this one. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this data path. Okay, so I need cursor. There we go. So I need to copy this data path and I need to set a variable. We're going to create a new variable and we're going to call this next pagination value. So we're going to select that next pagination value. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use Wized formula. So for this, I'm going to go back to ChatGPT and I'm going to prompt it to say, hey, I would like you to create a Wized formula where I can obtain the value of the last cursor value. Let me rephrase this. Hey, I would like you to create a Wized formula where I can obtain the cursor value of the last item, index item in this data path. So we're telling GPT that we want to grab the cursor value of the last index item in this data path, and then we share the data path with GPT. So we're going to wait and see if it succeeds in doing this. Okay, so it's asking me to do it to provide in a hard value, but we don't want the hard value. We actually want a dynamic way. So could you please provide a dynamic solution to this? Okay, so I think what's happening is GPT has completely forgotten that I have shared the formulas with GPT previously. So what I need to do is I need to quickly go over to my cheat sheet off screen, and I'm going to copy this. And what I'm going to do is paste this in and say, okay, just to remind you, here is how you can create Wized formulas. And I'm just going to paste in the third point. So I think hopefully it should be able to create something. There we go. It's just figured it out. Okay, I don't think we need to use the last item cursor, but let's go ahead and check this out anyway, and see what we get in return. All right, perfect. Well, it works. Wow, okay. That's amazing. So we got the cursor value for our next item. So let's go ahead and click save. And I'm going to check. Now, checking the cursor value is a bit of a nightmare because the front portion of it and the last portion of it is always the same, but the one on the middle is different. So I think we're looking for something as CJSYXN. So let's see if that's what it's returning. CJSYXN. So yeah. So that's right, I suppose. So I'm just going to stick with this right here, and that's our formula. So what happens is we don't want to provide a hard value to this because we want the request to be able to adapt dynamically. That's why we provide this formula instead of explicitly asking like, hey, just give me the 11th cursor number. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to close here, and we're pretty much done with fetch initial products. Now we need to see this in action. So we're going to head over to actions, and I'm going to go ahead, create my first folder here, /shop, close that, select shop, and we're going to call this render shop products. And with the attribute of shop product item. So just to quickly check, I'm gonna head over to WEBFLOW. Shop product item. Yep, that's the one that we want to target. And then we want to select render list, and then render list from array. So basically what we want to do is because if you remember correctly, we have saved everything in our variable. So we want to select the shop products variable. But it's not going to work that way because we need to actually select so basically with dot notation, we need to pinpoint which data path do we need to target in order to render out all our shop items. So in this case, what we're going to do, the best way to point this out would be if I open up this request and look for .data collect. I always mess this up, so it takes me a few tries to kind of work out which one we're after. I think it's this one right here. So what we do is basically we copy this and then we paste that in here, and then we get rid of this. Oh, right, and we need to add a dot here. Okay, so at the moment it gives us an error because the variable is empty. So we're gonna hit save and click on reload. So this time it should work. All right, there we go. We have the array inside shop products. So using the dot notation, we can target which data path to target exactly. And now, oh, right, we need to create the variable for our indexing. So in order to do that, we need to head over here and add our variable for indexing. So call this v index. Oh, wait, no. So we can just call this index. All right, there we go. So that's v index right there. Hop over to shop, render products, and then select v index. Okay, now if we reload the page, we should see 12 items loading up here. Perfect, it's working. Awesome. Now let's move on to our next item. We're gonna put this in the shop as well. And we're gonna call this set product name. And then we're going to select the attribute, turn on X-ray shop product name. Okay. there we go, shop product name. And then we want to select set HTML attribute with the key. Wait, am I selecting? Oh, right. Sorry. It's set text. That's why HTML. And then we select our text. So let's look at the data path here from our request. So we are targeting this right here, this data path. So we're going to click into this. And then what we're going to do is, actually, rather than doing that, let's do it another way. We're going to select our shop products, and then we selected the product variable here, and we copy starting from here, from this data path, and paste it into this variable. And then we're going to erase this off. And there we go. It brings us our string here, which is eucalyptus SPP. So awesome. We have just set our product name. I'm going to duplicate this. Let's move on to the next one, set product price. And this is shop product price. Okay, so that's shop product price. Perfect. We also want to set the text. Now, let's see which data path this belongs to. Where is our price? Price. There we go. That's the one. Okay. So, oh, right, I forgot. I actually made a mistake, but I'm going to get back to that in a bit. So this is the path that we need to copy first, and then take that away and replace this portion of it with our new data path, which brings $25.99. And we also want to add the pound sign here. So there we go. It brings us pound $25.99. And secondly, as you can see, it's only going to grab the value for the first item. So all our items are going to be $25.99. So we need to make sure to change this 0 to v index. Okay. That didn't work. 0. So is it this? Let me just check. Edges 2. Okay. V index. Okay. Let's just leave it at that and head over to shop product name as well and change this to v index as well. And refresh and see if this works. Okay, perfect. So we're seeing the product name and the appropriate pricing as well. Let's see if we're still seeing the error here. It's so weird. We're not supposed to be seeing this error. Reading node. Okay, I think I understand why the issue, and that's my fault again. So the v index needs to have an initial value of 0. So, yeah, that is my bad. So if I reload this page again, this time, we shouldn't be seeing that issue. There we go. It's fixed. Perfect. Okay. Let's move on to our next. Oh, actually, what I'm going to do is replicate this. So this time we're going to set the product image. And I think it's going to be the same. Perfect. Shop product image. But instead of set text, this time we're going to set HTML. Select set HTML attribute and then type in src. And okay, which data path are we targeting this time? So it's this one right here. But we're going to select our variable, which is shop products. And then we're going to copy this dot notation. And then we're going to get rid of all this. And there we go. That gives us our URL. And then we need to create another one for src set. We can use the same value as the one above. paste this in. Perfect. Now we're going to reload this page and check this out. Ah, shoot, we're getting the same image. That's because I forgot to put in the v index again. So it's the first one here. So this is supposed to be v index, and there we go. So if we reload the page again, perfect. Amazing. All right. Now, last but not least, we need to assign the product URL. So when you click into it, you want to make sure that you get into the product detail page of that item. So we're going to replicate this, set product link. So shop product link. And what we're going to do is reset this and change this to ref. And okay, so how are we going to do this? So basically, okay, now before we get to this, I need to create another variable. So we are going to call this variable site URL. And so this variable as a default going to have our clonable, our Shopify's website URL here. Sorry, our WEBFLOW URL here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And then jump over to Wized, paste that in here. So what we need is just this. So we don't need /shop, we just need this URL. So the reason why we're creating the URL in a variable is so that we can have this dynamic. Okay, so let's say in the future, I want to change the URL of the website, the URL of the variable, then I can just change it straight from here rather than me changing the URL from each and every request and actions, because then it becomes extremely tedious. And that's something that we don't want to do. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to set our site URL, and then we're going to put in /shop. And then we're going to put in another / and call it product page. And then we're going to, so we're adding this / product page because if we head over to Webflow here and check the slug, so this is our product page. So you'll notice that we have /shop / product page. So that product page is our product detail description page. So that's why we are adding that as well. And then we're going to add our parameter. So we're going to call our parameter as product and then equals. Now what I'm going to do is click enter here, and we're going to select our handle, the product handle, which is this right here. So this is the data path. I'm going to copy that data path. Oh, right, it just pasted in that here. Okay, perfect. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select our variable that contains all the shop products and then copy this dot notation and then paste it in here and then get rid of this curly braces here. And now if you look at the preview here, shop product, product page, product, vshop products. Oh, right. That's my bad. I shouldn't have actually removed that curly braces. So let's see if this works. Actually, let me try and go ahead to reload this page and see if that resolves the issue. Okay, so I think I figured out the issue might be because I might not have. There we go. Finally works now. So we got our Verdevista cloneable.webflow.io /shop /product page, and then we have our product parameter that has the product handle. Now what we need to do is we need to create the parameter of product and include that in our Wiz setup here. So on navigation, we're going to select this and call it product. So there we go. Okay, now we need to reload this page and see if this is working. Oh shoot, I forgot. I don't remember if I put in v index there. Okay, so I do have v index there. Now what we need to do is test this out to see if this is indeed working. Okay, so the items are fetching correctly. So now we need to check the parameter. So I'm going to click on this. Okay, and we just need to, all right, perfect. It is working. So we do have our parameter of product and the product handle being selected and assigned to it. So obviously we haven't worked on the request for this yet. So, but yeah, this is perfect. So I'm going to jump in here. Okay, perfect. So that brings us to the end of this tutorial. I know this was super long and tedious, but the good news is that because we have walked through on how to construct our request, from this point on, we're just going to be replicating our request. The only thing that's going to change is the body. So we're just going to be using different body to handle our requests and type of requests to suit our design. But yeah, hopefully that wasn't too hard. If you have any questions, please leave them on the comments. On the next tutorial, we're going to be focusing on the pagination and then wrap up on the shop page. So looking forward to that, and I'll see you on the next one.